See, constitution is the fundamental choice of this nation. It is the fundamental policy choice. When the time comes in the history of a nation to frame its own constitution, the whole world will be looking at that country. I will take you to one incident when the Simon Commission came to India in 1928. It was vehemently opposed by Indians, especially the Congress party, because there was no Indian representative on the commission. Back home in the British Parliament, the Secretary of State for India, then Lord Birkenhead, made an observation which is in the form of a challenge, which was in the form of a challenge to the Indian leaders to draft a constitution for India. He was implying that Indians were not capable of finding a common path and drafting a constitution because of the complex nature of the country India, the castes, religions, classes, etc. So that challenge and that underestimation of the Indian scholars, their ability to frame their own constitution, was proved wrong. The constitutional forefathers have drafted a constitution under the chairmanship of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, contribution by eminent scholars, Babu Rajendra Prasad, Alladi Krishna Swamy, n number of names we take, all of them together, they have drafted a complete constitution for our country. Complete constitution. We have to underline this expression, complete constitution. It is not any constitution that they have drafted. It is a complete constitution they have drafted. In political science sphere, we discuss the essentials of a complete constitution, one of them being the organization of the sovereignty within the constitution. Sovereignty should be organized within the constitution. That is one of the formula which the constitution makers will play when they frame the constitution. See, in the constitution, there are so many marvelous, beautiful things we students of constitutional law over a period of time explore and understand these things. And whenever we understand these things, we appreciate the scholarship of those constitution makers, because of whom we have this constitution which is saving our country today. The opening words of the constitution, we, the people of India, it starts in the name of we the people, the sovereign people of India. And refer to the last article, Article 395 of the Constitution, wherein the Constituent Assembly repeals Independence of India Act and Government of India Act, acts of British Parliament. As a student of first LLB, a question arose to me, how an act of British Parliament can be repealed by Indian Constituent Assembly. It should be open for the British Parliament to repeal their act, but how India can do that? See, here lies the crux. When we start this expression, we the people of India, and we are organizing a constitution for us, we are organizing our sovereignty in that constitution. This document, sovereign document, is equivalent to any other sovereign document, any other sovereign of any country. If British Parliament can legislate for India, Indian Constituent Assembly can repeal the acts of British Parliament. And by playing this technique, starting from we the people of India and repealing the British acts of parliament, the constitution makers have organized sovereignty within the constitution. And they have provided for continued organization of sovereignty within the constitution by providing a provision for amendment of the constitution to make it adaptable to the changing circumstances and needs of the country. And they have traced a domain of liberty. They have kept that domain of liberty. Organization of liberty within the constitution is another essential feature of a complete constitution. And this scale of liberty is kept beyond the reach of the tyranny of numbers in the parliament. That's what the constitution makers have done. By providing an entrenched Bill of Rights, a constitutionally entrenched Bill of Rights for the posterity. So we have framed a complete constitution. And this constitution has responded to the needs of the nation over a period of 7 decades. Professor Venkat Rao was referring, Indian constitution is 70 years young. It is not old. Yes, it is young. It is vibrant. It is responding to the needs of this nation. It is catering to the needs of this nation. It has withstood all assaults by all unscrupulous elements over this period of 70 years. That speaks about the ability and capability of our constitutional forefathers in framing a constitution. Wherever Lord Birkenhead is, he should turn in his graves at the success in which the constitution and the constitutional democracy is celebrated in this country. I have to refer for the information of the youngsters, the sarcastic statement that was made by Winston Churchill in the British Parliament when the debate was about independence of India. He has made this caustic observation about Indian leaders. Power will go to the hands of rascals, rogues, and freebooters. All Indian leaders will be of low caliber and men of straw. They will have sweet tongues and silly hearts. They will fight amongst themselves for power, and India will be lost in political squabbles. This was the underestimation, sarcastic remark, but we have proved him wrong. Our leaders have navigated the country under this controlling constitution for a period of 70 years. There was reference by Professor Rao to constitutional morality and transformative constitutionalism. See, that is what India was contemplated to be transformed into a sovereign democratic republic by this constitution. And the topic I am speaking on is pulsating the values in the constitution. I have taken this expression, pulsating values, from a very famous statement of Justice Hansraj Khanna, H.R. Khanna, his book, Making of the India's Constitution. Please, if you have not read it, read this. This is a treasure. This is a treasure. And if you are not touching this book, you have taken a decision not to touch that treasure of information, treasure of knowledge, bastion of knowledge. Please go through this book. And the statement comes in that book. Petty minds ill go with the governance of great countries. The edifice of nations and national institutions, we should remember, take long to build. Behind them is the story of sweat, blood, and tears, of untold suffering and sacrifice. Yet they can be destroyed overnight by the banishment of principles or by the selfishness, petty-mindedness, or folly of men. If the Indian Constitution is our heritage bequeathed to us by our founding fathers, no less are we, the people of India, the trustees and custodians of the values which pulsate within its provisions. See, we, the people of India, the trustees and custodians of the values which pulsate within its provisions. A constitution is not a parchment of paper, it is a way of life and has to be lived up to. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, and in the final analysis, its only keepers are the people. Imbecility of man, history teaches us, always invites the impudence of power. So, we, the people of India, are the custodians of this constitution, trustees of this constitution, and the values which pulsate within these provisions. And those values which Professor Rao was referring, analyzing the preamble of the constitution, the basic prime values of justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. These are the values which we should pulsate, which we should imbibe into our way of life, which we should cherish, nourish for the eternity. This is the value premise on which the Constitution is based, dignity of the individual. Okay, when a Constitution is framed, it defines the relationship between the rulers and the administrators and the citizens of that country. Closely watch these words, citizens of the country. So, under the Constitution, before the Constitution, we had rulers and subjects. After the adoption of the Constitution, we have public servants and the sovereign people, citizens. We have public servants and citizens. And the beauty of this Constitution lies in changing this equation between the power holders and the power addressees. Power addressees are the citizens. Power holders are the public servants. You have the sovereign public and you have public servants. Why we have to pulsate the values in the Constitution? We have to pulsate the values in the Constitution. Every citizen of this country has to pulsate the values in the Constitution for the simple reason that we should understand who is who. Public servant should understand that he is a public servant, and citizen should understand that he is a sovereign in this country. In the second Administrative Law Commission reports, in drafting which our great advocate Sri Veerappa Moily has played a important role. Therein they speak of the subsidiarity principle. The subsidiarity principle is about the sovereignty that lies with the people. Why this sovereign, the common man, the citizen of India, is not in a position to believe that he is the sovereign? And when he can believe that he is the real sovereign in this country? He can believe that he is the real sovereign in this country when his will is respected. That's why the concept of deepening the democracy, when we are empowering the grassroots panchayats with power to take decisions and operationalize those decisions. And when people sitting in panchayats in the presence of their own people, Grama Sabha, take a decision and that decision is translated into reality, then they will feel that they are the sovereigns in this country. Hats off to all those people who have brought in these amendments and empowered the local bodies of self-governance. That's why we have to pulsate the values in the Constitution. There was a reference to constitutional morality. In simple words, what this mandates? Constitutional morality mandates that the values of Constitution should be the life breath of everyone. Values of Constitution should be the life breath of everyone. Political leaders, bureaucrats, business houses, including the common citizens, should imbibe these values in the Constitution. And they should manifest these values of the Constitution in their day-to-day affairs, day-to-day life. That should be reflected in their administrative decisions, behavior, conduct, interaction with the citizens of this country. Okay, so for that reason, the people in authority people in influential positions, those who are in public, the so-called public figures, there is a greater responsibility on these public figures, public men and women, to behave and conduct in such a way that they are worthy of emulation by other people. When we speak of these values of justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, and dignity, the goal of establishing a sovereign, socialistic, secular, democratic republic, we have to understand that these principles, these values are to be translated into reality. We have the great chapter, Entrenched Bill of Rights. We have values laced into the directive principles of state policy and fundamental duties. And these things are to be emphasized. These things are to be emphasized because they have all the relevance during all the times. And we have done one experiment with right to education. By enacting the Right to Education Act, we have translated the directive into a fundamental right by amending the Constitution and enacting this. Similarly, other fundamental duties also can be brought into force. The citizens should not be at the mercy of the government. The entitlement of citizens under the Constitution should not be seen in the form of freebies, the government largesse that is doled out to the people. No, these people are not at the receiving end, they are at the commanding end under the Constitution of India. They are entitled to these things. Constitutional entitlement should be available as a matter of right and not as a matter of policy or charity on the part of the government. The needs of the people in distress are to be taken notice of by the government of the states and the center, and they are to be addressed. Help should be forthcoming on its own from the side of the government. That is the value that is there in the Constitution. And the most important, scientific temper. We have to develop scientific temper, and there is a duty to strive towards excellence. Professor Rao had recommended me a book written by 3 authors, What Good Law Teachers Do. I read that book, and at the end of that, one of the principles that I picked up from this book is, I should become a teacher whom I wanted to have. I should become a teacher whom I wanted to have. As a teacher, there is a duty, there is a responsibility on me to strive towards excellence, given my ability and strength. To the extent possible, I should strive towards it. All of us manning different positions, right from the position of a peon to that of a president. All of them should strive towards excellence. That is the mandate of the Constitution. We have no escape. We are all under a constitutional mandate. When we speak of transformative Constitution, this Constitution is transforming the society. The great author Granville Austin, the students of constitutional law admire both of his books, Indian Constitution, the Cornerstone of a Nation, and the other book, Working of a Democratic Constitution. In the first book, Indian Constitution, the Cornerstone of a Nation, he says, the Indian Constitution is first and foremost a social document. It is a social document. And it wants to transform India. And a sort of social revolution is contemplated in part 3 and part 4 of the Constitution. And how and why this part 3 and part 4 come into the Constitution, he explains. The fundamental rights and directive principles had their roots deep in the struggle for independence. And they were included in the Constitution in the hope and expectation that one day the tree of true liberty would bloom in India. The rights and principles thus connect India's future, present, and past. That is the dynamism of these two parts, part 3 and part 4, adding greatly to the significance of their inclusion in the Constitution and giving strength to the pursuit of social revolution. India has transformed. Constitution has successfully transformed India. That feudal society, the class society, has become a classless society. Equality is achieved in myriad fields. Whether this constitution is successful, 70 years, it is a young constitution. When we speak in terms of whether the constitution is successful or not, what we have to look into, we have to look into the real existence of constitution. Today, we are celebrating the birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi ji and Lal Bahadur Shastri. 151 years back, this great son of India took birth, who went on to become father of the nation. And Lal Bahadur Shastri, who proved that simple living is possible, it is not a difficult proposition. Why we remember these people? We remember these people for the reason that these people are existing with us. There is what is known as posthumous existence. Ordinary individuals, they die and perish, they are forgotten. But great personalities continue to live even after their death. That is known as posthumous existence. We have to feel the existence. Constitution as a document is one thing. Constitution as available to the people in the society, in existence, is something different. When we consider the effectiveness of a constitution, it must be understood that it has real existence only in the way it is used. What is the Constitution for India? Constitution for India is that part of the Constitution which is used right today, now, here. That is the Constitution in existence. Whether our Constitution is in existence, authoritatively we can say, yes, it is in existence. It is in a position to streamline lot many number of things. We have the ultimate trust in the court. Please read the book of Fallen Ariman, God Save the Honorable Supreme Court. It is a sort of caution. Constitutional institutions should be nourished, protected, and they should discharge their functions. Then only everything will be good with the common man in this country. To what extent the commands of the Constitution are respected by the people to whom they are addressed, the power holders and power addressees. We can judge a constitution by the extent to which it commands the allegiance of those who are to govern themselves by it. There cannot be a greater equation than this. Whether all these people in the administration, civil service, in the holders of the public power, whether they have allegiance to the constitutional values and principles, whether all of us common people, whether we have allegiance to these values in the Constitution, if they and we have adherence, commitment to these values, allegiance to these provisions in the Constitution, then we can say we are pulsating the values in the Constitution. So that is the type of affinity that we have to develop. And these values are pulsating in this country. We can take this example that 70 years we are governed by a democratically elected government. That itself is the proof of the fact that constitutional values, that value of democracy is pulsating in this country and it is celebrated in this country. Remember our neighbor, Pakistan had to wait for 60 years to see that power will pass from one elected government to another elected government. A country had to wait for 60 years to see power being passed from one civilian government to another civilian. Otherwise, power has always passed from a civilian government into the hands of a military dictator in that country. But look at what we have done. We have, right from the beginning, we have seen that power has passed smoothly from one government to another government. Sometimes the other government with a different ideology than the government which is going out of office. That is the proof of the fact that the values are pulsating in this country. So when the Constitution of India was being framed, the great scholar Sachidananda Sinha was the temporary chairman of the Constituent Assembly before the regular chairman was elected. Messages came from different parts of the country wishing the Constituent Assembly a great success. And in that, the statement, the message that comes from United States of America by the Secretary of State is to the effect that the whole world is watching you. See, India is not an ordinary country. India has been a bastion of scholarship, tradition, science, arts, everything. So when they sit to frame the Constitution, the world expected that they will be in a position to put a good Constitution, a complete Constitution in this place. Please read Sudesh Pai's Legends of Law. In that, there is a write-up about Sir B.N. Rao, Benegal Narsingh Rao. He receives a letter from the British government to join the Calcutta High Court as the justice, and he would have become the Chief Justice and so many things. And at the same time, offer comes to help the country in the making of the Constitution, and he has replied to the British government, and that letter is reproduced in this book. He says, in the life of a person, sometimes there will come a situation wherein he will be at the crossroads. And my country thinks I have some ability and capability to help them in drafting a constitution. I go with my country and participate in the constitution making, then occupy the prestigious position of justice in the court. So he opted to become the constitutional advisor to the Constituent Assembly. So when all of them tried this and started their trust with the destiny, Indians did not commit any fault. They have taken a very right decision. And in this context, I want to take you through another statement of Justice H.R. Khanna, okay, wherein with all passion he quotes Dr. Babu Rajendra Prasad, the statement he made in the concluding session of the Constitution. In that book he writes, I feel tempted in this connection to quote the words of Dr. Rajendra Prasad at the concluding session of the Constituent Assembly. We have prepared a democratic constitution, but the successful working of democratic institution requires in those who work them willingness to respect the viewpoint of others. What a marvelous expression. There should be willingness on the part of those people who work the constitution to respect the viewpoint of others. Capacity for compromise and accommodation. Many things which cannot be written in a constitution are done by conventions. to which Professor Rao was referring. Let us hope that we shall show those capabilities and develop those conventions. And transfer of power is one of the great conventions we have developed. And Dr. Rajendra Prasad went on to observe like this. This is a statement that has come from a great scholar, and we, as the ardent followers of the Constitution, should keep on repeating, reminding ourselves these cautions of great people. He observes like that, I quote, whatever the Constitution may or may not provide, the welfare of the country will depend upon the way in which the country is administered. That will depend upon the men who administer it. It is a trite saying that a country can have only the government it deserves. Our Constitution has provisions in it which appear to some to be objectionable from one viewpoint or another. We must admit that the defects are inherent in the situation and the people at large. If the people who are elected are capable and men of character and integrity, they would be able to make the best even of a defective constitution. If they are lacking in integrity and character, the constitution cannot help the country. After all, the constitution, like a machine, is a lifeless thing. It acquires life because of men who control it and who operate it. And India needs today nothing more than a set of honest men who will have the interest of the country before them. See, this is the observation. We should elect men of integrity and character, and then only the constitution will yield the type of results which we, as the citizens of this country, expect the constitution. Constitution indicates the direction in which we are to move. But one thing we have to remember, a great writer by name Andrei Batalet has observed how the constitution will operate will be determined by the social structure. How far we are in a position to move in that direction will be determined by social. There should be transformation in the society. And all those great principles that are weaved into the constitution are to be followed. And then only the constitution will be effective. See, when we have to respect the opinion of others, everyone matters in this country. That's why in his book, Fali Nariman, when he writes a chapter about majority and minority, he writes, majority should accept that it is a majority with a small m, and minority also should accept that it is a minority with small m. There should be a sort of harmony between majority and minority. That is the harmony that is contemplated in the Constitution. So on an occasion like this, we have to remember, we have to cherish, we have to imbibe and pulsate those great values that are there in the Constitution of India. And this being an auspicious day, the Bangalore Law College has embarked upon this program, national webinar, on a very contemporary topic. And the beauty of the program is I'm seeing 240 odd people on the platform. That means people who really pulsate the values of the Constitution are there on the platform. I am really honored by this privilege that is conferred upon me to address this elite gathering. I thank everyone for providing this opportunity and allowing me to share some of my views through this forum. Thank you very much.
I take this rare honor of proposing vote of thanks to our adorable speaker, Professor Dr. C.S. Patil, whose proficiency in constitutional law can't be measured, and it is so adept. Years more so, the passion with which Professor Dr. C.S. Patil sir has delivered the resourceful lecture on the topic pulsating the constitutional values. To be honest, the topic to begin with appeared very alien, but sir, you have made it very homely. Sir, thank you for your affectionate gesture and cooperation to our institution. Thank you very much, sir.